now moving into the artist talk portion of our day. Just a quick note here. I know that many of us are likely going to have lots of questions for our artists. If you don't get a chance to ask after the artist talks, remember that we do have a panel discussion and Q&A to follow Dan and Carol's talks. So you'll still have an opportunity to chat with the artists and get your burning questions answered. So with that said, I am now pleased to introduce Dan Friday, a Seattle-based glass artist, a member of the Lummi tribe, Lummi Nation. He has worked with some of the foremost contemporary glass artists. In fact, we learned this morning that he actually worked on the chihuly that hangs in our entrance. So very exciting fact there. He has taught at the Pilchuck School of Glass and has had residencies at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington, and the Dream Community in Taipei, Taiwan. He is a recipient of the 2020 Artist Trust Fellowship and the Discovery Fellowship through the Southwestern Association for Indian Arts. You also may have caught him on season 3 of the Netflix series Blown Away. Dan's vibrant and striking work is, of course, included in collections around the world, and we are thrilled to be showing a number of his solo and collaborative works here in our galleries as part of Clearly Indigenous. Please join me in welcoming Dan Friday.
Haishka Siam, Natalacha Siam, Haishka Unklian, Senesnat Kokol, Senesnat Dan Friday. Hello, friends. My name is Dan Friday, a member of Lummi Nation, the Wexlami people, or Lahakamish people. Yeah, let's kind of get through here. This is kind of my, thanks, Miriam. This is kind of my university presentation thing that I do, but I'll blaze through it. This is where I'm from. These are the San Juan Islands in the Puget Sound area. You can see Lummi Island. Lummi is the name of the tribe now after the Point Elliott Treaty. Historically, it was Wexlami or Lahakamish. Let me see if I can pull off the laser point. Hey, so that's the current Lummi reservation today. But you can see that Lummi Island, we're actually from this part of the islands, San Juan and Orcas Island, but that's where our reservation is today, is that little peninsula. It's my sister Ray. You'll see her work in the show. This is my brothers and my Auntie Pauline Scala, the killer whale. My sister Ray is also an amazing glass artist, and we'll share some of these older pictures. These are really historic photos of my family, and there's so many Native people that are separated from their story and their relatives, but being from the part of the country I'm from, we signed the last treaty in the lower 48, and we still have a strong Native culture in the Pacific Northwest, much like the Southwest, where it was so remote at the time that, we have this lineage still. In the very center is my great-great-grandfather, Hituluk, Frekaler, Osium. He is, he's a strong member of the Coast Salish community. My great-great-grandmother there, Agnes Haumea, is actually half Hawaiian and half Cowichan. There's a great Hawaiian thread through the Puget Sound that is not written really in history books, but there was a tribe of about 400 Hawaiian people that left in the 1800s. And I want to point out real quick in this picture, they're wearing what's called skutta, our Coast Salish woolly dog blankets. Our blankets used to be made with dog fur and mountain goat wool, but I just want to point out the haute couture of 1890 here. That's Frank Calera again. And like I said, I just like sharing these pictures because a lot of people don't have them. You can see the Hilaire bear on the drum right there. That'll come up later. But that's kind of like our tribal crest. These are the canoes. We're seafaring people, canoe people. The Salish Sea is where we're from. We're fishermen. This is actually a New Chalmu style canoe, and it's kind of like the Toyota Prius of the day. Like everyone had one of these. It's like where we go get around. This in the very front here, this is my great-grandfather, Joseph Hilaire. In the back is Frank Hilaire. And you can see the triplets there's two on one side and one on the other, twins running our family quite a bit. But this is the Setting Sun Dance Troupe. This is my great-grandfather, Joseph Hilaire. These pictures, I think, are all in the early 1900s, but this, you can see he's in the traditional regalia. This is my great-grandmother, Edna Price. This is Joe Hilaire carving his centennial pole that was featured at the World's Fair in 1962. His cousin Harry, because I got jokes, I got to keep it light because sometimes we get into heavy content, but talking about Native history in America can be sometimes dark, and it can be really, when you're reading a lot of this stuff, you got to remember to take a breath, let it out, because sometimes it gets the stories of Native people to get where we are today. It's heavy, and as a Native person, you just want to throw the fucking book down sometimes. But anyway, getting forward to where we're at today, this is at the Squamish, the Canoe Racing Festival that just happened. Canoe Journey just happened in Washington State, and that's where the tribes come from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away to meet in this in the traditional way of potlatch and powwow. Well, you may be familiar with the word powwow. We have what's called a potlatch, very similar to a big gathering of nations, a lot of gifting. But this is today in Hales Pass between Lummi Island and the reservation. And I feel fortunate to be from a part of the country where this still exists. I got to keep this thing moving, so I'm going to blaze through these. This is a piece of glass of my sister's cameo cut of Hales Pass. Let's see if there's that a little better. Kind of feeling. There we go. My sister Ray is also an amazing glass artist. You may have seen her work. And I'll kind of get up here because she's not the type to get up and talk about herself. So I like to beat her drum for her a little bit because that's, I do it, she doesn't. But she's also an amazing glass artist. This is over a ton of glass. It was in the Botanical Gardens in Santa Fe. And, she's just somebody you might not know about. A lot of Native artists, like we were talking to Letitia earlier, I didn't know. There was a lot of people from the show that I didn't know, and I thought I know half of them really well, and the other half, some of them I'd never even heard of. So I was a fisherman in a former life, to catch glass fish. I was a mechanic. I owned a tow truck when I was 16. I thought that glass was, I had no idea about glass. And when I was 20 years old, I walked into a factory and knew that that's what I was going to do with the rest of my life. This is a picture working with my friend Nancy Callan and Lino Talipietra in 1997, maybe, at the Pilchuck Glass School, where I met Preston here on the left, and I'm casting in the middle there, casting the sword for the totem pole. That's where I met Brian Barber. And yeah, the Pilchuck Glass School has been a lot of my former glass education. You can go get a BFA in glass or a master's. You can even get a doctorate in glass now in a few places in like London and New Zealand, I believe. But the real way to learn how to make glass is to work on a team with people. The joke we have in Seattle is like the BFA means barely fucking able. And then you got to come and learn how to do it. Because you can't read a book. You can't read a book about playing a violin or doing any of these things. You've just got to work in the medium, and Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. You got to put your time in, and you can't fake it if you don't have it. That's a picture. That last picture was Colin Powell and Dale Chihuly. I still work with Dale today. He's been a great mentor. Like I said, a lot of the things you learn in Native culture, we call like a sit beside art. Like you learn your art at the feet of a master or working with another master. And I feel real fortunate to have met Dale in 1999 and been working with him since. It's one of those things you learn things that you just can't read about reading a book, These are some of my very first pieces from like 97, 99, maybe 2000. I'm not sure. This is my first fishing boat. It was called the Rubinator because I got it from my uncle Ruben, but I couldn't get it to fit on the cameo cut. But I'll just kind of blaze through some of these. These are my early works. I was a mechanic, I was into gears. Yeah. It was a teepee with a sun, but a gear. Canoe paddle, Tommy's Hawk. Serenades. This Land Is, the musket. Trail of Tears. And so, yeah, these are a lot of my older works. This is, about 2008, owl encounter in my room. He found it in the driveway, thought it was dead, brought it back to my room, and it turned out it could fly after all, so I let it go. But it stayed with me for a weekend, and it came at the end of about a week of making owls. So I can't always read the writing on the wall, but I'm like, that's a sign, damn it. Just keep making these things, So I kept making owls for a while. These are some of my first works into my own, my own work, owl totem. Let me just see. Did I just jump? Oh yeah, no, this is, okay, let's see here. Does that work? No, it doesn't. Oh, well, there's a video of it, but trust me, you can just kind of see it in the round, but you can see the work out here. So this makes more sense at the university. We'll just skip that. This is the tribal, our family crest. This is the Hilaire bear, or Hakelux bear. These are some of the first bears I made. They had legs. The bears now don't have legs because I like to let the glass sort of be more glassy, and kind of let the glass do. There's what you can get away with in glass. You will have an idea, and a lot of times you have to work with the glass to kind of get your idea out. And there's like what the glass will allow you to do. And sometimes you can struggle to make it do what you want, but sometimes it's good to let the glass. You got to have a dialogue with it, a little bit of give and take. And so I really like them now without legs, because it kind of gives more of a palette, or there's more area to showcase the pattern. I really enjoy the pattern. This is a lightning bear, like the one in the exhibit. This is done with a lot of cane work and Murini, mountain bear, Raven Watcher's totem, similar. This is a comb, raven comb. This is the Wecklium comb. Wecklium is the name of the Lummi longhouse. It means place of frogs. A lot of frogs where we live. We live in a really wet climate, and I'm grateful for that, actually. And so these combs are not for hair. These are actually loom combs for weaving. I get a lot of influence from the weavers. I'll get into that. This is my great grandfather, Joseph Hilaire, or Cocotte, my namesake. And he's carving a totem pole in Pioneer Square, Seattle. This is for the World's Fair in 1962 in Seattle. There's a book about his work. And I believe Gregory Fields is a professor from this area, actually. He helped write it with my Auntie Pauline Scala, the killer whale. This is the last standing totem of Joseph Hilaire's. It's been restored twice. It's about 80 to 90% fiberglass. But I'm super grateful to have this. A lot of the works of Native people are made in natural materials that return to the earth through decay. But because of this one being restored, this is in front of the Whatcom County Courthouse in Washington State. And I'm grateful to see this because, a lot of his work is gone now. And I mentioned earlier in Egypt, this is the bust of Akhenaten. It's 3,500 years old, plus 35 to 4,000 years old. And it looks like it could have been made yesterday. Yeah, it's got some vitrification and there's some pockets of air bubbles, but that's basically what it looked like when it was made almost 4,000 years ago. And you think of glass as this like really fragile material, and it is, but it's also super resilient. And to have these pieces, it's such a powerful piece. This is at the Corning Museum in New York. And, it's such a permanent way of, as my name Cocotte means story of the war club, or like storyteller of the wars. And, to be able to tell your stories in such a permanent medium, that's kind of the intersection of my work, I feel like, is this history of glass, which has a large Venetian influence and Italian aesthetic, but telling these Coast Salish stories in glass is what brings me a lot of joy. These are some of my totems, a little different foragers totems, similar to the one out there. Let's see if the video's played. This is making a totem. We're going to go do a demo later, but I'm sure all of you will be there. But what you can see, what Letitia alluded to too, is it's a lot like, I use the analogy of being in a band, because it is this teamwork process. I've got one person turning the pipe, person torching. There's like, 5 or 6 guys and gals helping me out on these projects. And it's, there's no way you can just do this all by yourself. So you develop this dialogue as an artist with other artists. That's the only way any of this glass art gets made, especially in the hot shop. If you're a painter or a poet, you just disappear into your studio, make your tea, take a phone call, go take a break. Oh man, the cat needs it, whatever is the deal. But glass is like a fire drill. You guys all better be there at 8 a.m. I don't care how hungover you are. I'm paying for the day. My day in the shop for 8 hours, I'm spending $2,500 for an 8-hour day to make work. And I'm really dependent on my team. So you become so close with these people because you share this process together. So that's like, I think as a tribal person, you can relate to this. And I think a lot of people, I share those images in the beginning of my family. I think a lot of us are separated from our families, or the family that you choose and the family you make. And that's what glass has to offer. A lot of people that are amazing craftspeople may not necessarily be the artists, but they come and they join the glass community. And I mean, they find a community where I think a lot of times people are a little bit homeless that way. This is Chitapi, or Aunt Fran, the venerable auntie of the Lummi people. Her son, Chief Salit, Chief Bill James, passed away just a little bit ago, but they were great Oksalas, or teachers to me. Just a little story. I can't dwell too long on any of these photos, but you can see her weaving her cedar baskets. She's sitting on some of her mountain goat wool blankets. And this is what's crazy, because this is what like a freedom fighter looks like. You think of some dude armed to the gills, just jacked or something. This little old lady is the reason that we have a language today as a tribe. They teach Weklamichasan, our language, in the school to our kids. They grew up in a time where speaking their language, you would be punished. My uncle, my great uncle, from her generation, my uncle, would tell me his stories about the residential school. He would get sick to his stomach, violently nauseous to hear the language, because he knew they just wouldn't speak it. It was like beaten out of him, literally. And, little old rebel, like disobedient old ladies like this in her weaving circle is how we have this weaving tradition today still. How we know how to harvest the cedar, how we know how to harvest the mountain goat wool, how we have a language to speak. That comes from a little old lady like this. And that's, like my grandfather carving his poles in his time. He was a big ambassador between the settlers and the tribes because he was such a good speaker. But one time when I first came into my own, sort of making my work, I had been blowing glass for about 12 years or so. Been doing it about 28 years right now. And Aunt Fran, I went to her place and she said, "Oh, my cousin, Dan works, is a glass artist. He makes amazing work." And, I worked for Chihuly at this time, which is this great like achievement. But she's like, "Well, where's your work?" I'm like, "But Auntie, I work for Dale Chihuly." And she's like, "Well, who's that? I don't even know. And, I want to see your work." I'm like, "Well, Auntie, it's really hard to get a job doing this. You got to have a degree from somewhere. It's hard to find your thing." And she's like, "I don't have a degree. I make my work. It's in the Smithsonian. This is what we do. We make things with our hands." I mean, you don't need someone's permission to make your artwork. That idea was just crazy to her, that you need all right, here's your degree. You're anointed. Go forth and make art. I feel like the people that I teach in the art world and glass world, I've seen the university system crush a lot of artists. You know what I mean? It's just like here to like, I'm going to judge your work. You know what I mean? The only mechanism, and some artists it works for, but I just don't think that that's the only way. In our culture, we have the sit beside art, and you figure out and it's tricky to find your voice. And I told her, Auntie, I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this." And she said, you don't need anyone's permission. You need to just start working. And so this is the basket series I started, Aunt Fran's basket. And I started this about 3 months after she passed away. It's a fern basket. And you see, this is actually a close-up of the basket out there. This is making a basket very similar, and you'll see the teamwork in this. And this is, again, so I've got my friend, rest in peace, G-Man, Greg, turning the pipe, got Taylor blowing. This is this team process. I've kind of set this mosaic up. I turn this mosaic into a bubble. If you've ever heard of scrimshaw, where you rub ink in the scratches of ivory, I'll take this black powder. Once I get it sealed off with that hot cookie of glass, I'll sift black powder onto it and then wipe it away. And then the black only remains in those little crevices. And then with this final gather, it really homogenizes and solidifies all the glass into one thing. Greg's blowing, Taylor's turning, I'm cutting the neckline in. It's this choreography that you can't, like I said, you can't even take two virtuoso musicians and put them in a room and be like, all right, make great music, guys. You know, my wife's a singer and she hates it when she's out in public and people are like, all right, just sing us something on the sidewalk, right? And she's like, okay, whatever, you know. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. If you take two glass artists, it's like you get this rhythm that Letitia mentioned. You get this harmony that you get from working with other people. This is a corn basket that my sister Ray put together. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of other Native artists. This is the Evergreen Longhouse, and put together by my Aunt Mary Ellen Hilaire, or Haytowit. And like I said, I get a lot of joy of sharing glass with other Native artists, because it's one of those things that takes quite a long time to learn how to do. And so if I can help other artists realize their vision in glass, it brings me a lot of joy. This is at the Burke Museum with my sister Ray. This is a clam basket, traditional Lummi. This is her clam basket. Haytaluk Frank Hilaire, again, teaching the settlers how to reef net fish in 1890. This is our method of fishing, and consequently starting the commercial canning reef netting industry in the Puget Sound, and then they banned natives from reef net fishing. That's a reef net anchor, an actual anchor. These are the anchors I make. The salmon, you'll see. Okay, one more video. How am I doing on time? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Keep it quick, keep it moving. Pop, pop, pop. All right. So again, teamwork, stretching out the bubble. I mean, these all just sort of start. A lot of my work is solid, but these are sculpted, blown. You can see a lot of the sculptures in there that are blown, and you can get much larger because it has a hollow volume. But a lot of my sculptures are solid. And so, like, even a small little piece is like, it just gets really heavy real quick. I mean, there are limitations to what you can make on a pipe. Like, you see the big piece in there that's Preston's totem. Those are cast, and that's some of the only way to get the super large scale pieces. Making the tail. Little drop of water, just like that ice cube into room temperature water creates those fractures. Just a tiny drop of water on that connection, and it's basically a controlled break is how you get him off the pipe. This is I'd say he's an apprentice, but now he's kind of a man of his own energy right now. Doug Burgess, helping me weave a net for my reef net installation. Wow. I like to point out that the willow hoop there, that is at the end of the reef net, or the womb of the female energy that we have. And so when we catch a fish, when we reef net fish, the very tip of the spear, the chief of the salmon people, these few couple, they get out every time, and they're allowed to continue upriver and to continue to breed. And that built-in mechanism of conservation in native fishing, that doesn't exist in deep sea. Have you ever heard of bycatch? When 90% of what they catch isn't what they were looking for, when they dredge the whole bottom and kill everything. It's sustainable fishing just needs to happen. But that doesn't exist in, international water, deep sea fishing. This is from my museum show. I've got some of my catalogs from, this is my first solo museum show. And they're up front if you want to grab one. It's my longhouse. You can see in our culture, this is the female beams, and they have straight grain. The male beams on the right side of the longhouse are really knotty and kinky and less stable. But the female beams are what hold the house together in our tradition. These are my neon pieces. Sailor spirits. red face dancer. It's my cousin, Ron Hilbert. I'll see him. Passed away, missing, murdered, Indigenous woman. This painting by Paul Kane shows the Coast Salish woolly dog right there. And these are Cowichan women weaving these blankets. This is the last photo of the Coast Salish woolly dog, that one of the only photos that ever existed is from 1860. And the dogs, their fur was so thick, they practiced animal husbandry, and they would keep the genes of these dogs really pure. This blanket, actually, is it this one? No. This one right here, I saw at the Burke Museum, but now with DNA testing, they can prove that it was actually dog, and traditionally they thought that it was wool, that the blankets we use were made out of. It is mixed with mountain goat wool, but it is primarily dog fur. And these are some of my blankets. Again, like I pointed out in the beginning, blankets are a big part of our culture, powwow culture, like you would call it out here, or potlatch culture. The gifting of a blanket is, and now we give out fleece blankets and everyone gets one. But historically, when people didn't own much except a basket, these vessels were so important. That's how we cooked and stored our food. People didn't have many possessions, but a blanket is like one of the most powerful. It's like also a status symbol, but it could take up to a year to make a blanket when people were living the way they did. And so just historically, a blanket is one of the most valuable gifts you can get. It's like, I'm going to keep you warm in the winter. I'm going to help you survive, keep you from being sick. This is the Hilltop Glass Arts community, and started in Hilltop, Tacoma, and which was the murder capital of the world when it started in 1995. Hilltop Crips and massive gang violence in Tacoma, where Dale was from, and he started this program. And I've worked with the Hilltop program for about 27 years now. And it got me to start this program, the Native Youth Program at the Pilchuck Glass School. This is the first year that we did it. It was really tricky getting kids to come out and do this from the tribal communities. I didn't know that, like I said, it's a team sport. This is Naya in Portland. This is my sister Ray, my sister Ray is an amazing teacher. She worked at Corning, as Letitia mentioned. I'm not like naturally a teacher, but you teach people because we work in these teams. I end up teaching a lot of people because I'm like, I need you to get it right. You got to figure this out, and you got to do it X, Y, Z, do like this. And then I just never really envisioned myself as a teacher. I guess it's not my calling, but it is. I mean, here I am, and I teach a lot of people. And I teach a lot of these Native kids to blow glass. And what, that like my friend Pearl Dick has in Chicago, has a gunshot victims program for kids in the streets of Chicago. What glass does is it has that teamwork thing that's going on, but it's also like, glass is so demanding. It keeps you in the moment in a way that most other mediums will not. It will cut you. It will burn you. It has the unique capacity to cut and burn you at the same time, which is a unique thing that until you've worked with glass, you've never been cut and burned at the same time. But it keeps you in the moment like no other material. And if you're not worried about yesterday, you can't be too concentrated on tomorrow, or it will just break. It just falls on the floor, literally breaks. If you're not paying attention, it literally burns you. So it has a great way of like instilling communication. I feel like a lot of times that's one of the number one things that I had to learn is I'm like communicating with other artists and other people. And I think just that dialogue starts sharing. These two girls grew up on my reservation, and they grew up in two families that do not talk to each other. I mean, Indian people are just like everyone else. There's like tribal feud, their family. This family doesn't talk to that family. My family is huge. I come from a really big family, but not, there's different tribal politics. These two girls, it's like the Hatfield and McCoys. And these two girls went to this school, in the same tiny school in a portable, and just never spoke to each other because you just don't speak to people that are from that family. And just after a weekend up at this class, these two girls could have been best friends. And that's why I do the work I do with the tribal kids. That's my sister Ray. This is that program today. This is my family today. This is Hales Pass today. Miigwech, Aishkasiam.